contest this year, although there haven't been any games like that Colts-Broncos debacle from a year ago where I think Al Michaels was considering storming out during the game. There's still been good games. Like last week's Bears-Panthers game was not a horrible game. It was exciting, for most. I mean, not exciting. Exciting, I'm selling it a little bit too much, but it wasn't a debacle. It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't one where you just wanted to turn off the TV and watch something else. Tonight should be great. Tonight is compelling. It's high stakes. It's the Ravens hosting the Bengals in an ultra-competitive AFC North that got reshuffled a little bit yesterday with the Deshaun Watson news that we'll talk about later. But, Chris, this is November football. This is a great game. This is must-see TV on Thursday night on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I mean, the AFC North got reshuffled with Deshaun Watson, and the AFC North got reshuffled on Sunday with Cincinnati and Baltimore losing. I think that's what makes it even better for tonight. It does, but I don't want to say desperation, but there's got to be a little bit of an inkling of desperation with the Cincinnati Bengals here tonight. I mean, the fact that they're sitting here 5-4, it could be 5-5, and you lost head up to the Houston Texans, right? You lose that tiebreaker there. There's some issues and some things here where, it's not desperation time, but man, is this a big football game for the Cincinnati Bengals? And then, of course, Baltimore, who's trying to reclaim the throne of the AFC North from Cincinnati, trying to get to their first Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, trying to win the number 1 seed, and looked like they were kind of on the trajectory to maybe do that or seriously challenge the Kansas City Chiefs in that department. They lose a game where they had a nice lead, no doubt about it, but now, hey, this is big, not only for the division, for their, the future as far as winning home field, see where it goes. But, I mean, we know this game is usually physical and brutal as is. You add that little element into it, the fact that they lost just 4 days ago, I just think it makes it that much more intriguing and that more, desperate for both of these football teams. And that's what we want on Thursday Night Football, and that should lead us to an awesome physical football game.
Yeah, I mean, at first blush, both teams losing on Sunday is like, well, it takes a little sizzle out of what would have been, 8-2 versus 6-4. 3. No.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, 6-3. Yeah. I still hate the buys really screw me up. One team's played 10, one team's played 9. Regardless, both losing adds that dash of desperation. The Ravens lose. They'll be not in first place all of a sudden in a division it looked like they were going to run away with pending the outcome of Steelers-Browns. Whoever wins that game would take over first place in the division. And the Bengals lose, and they're in that morass of teams trying to hold on and get the 7th seed. Drop to 500, right there with the Bills at 5-5. And you think of all the stuff we're saying about, good Lord, what's happened to the Bills at 5-5? If the Bengals fall to 5-5, now their excuse is Joe Burrow wasn't healthy early, but 5-5 is still 5-5. The Bengals arguably in a much better position to pull out enough wins to get to the postseason than the Bills because Burrow's healthy, but all of a sudden a 2-game losing streak 5 days apart in November, that's not the kind of thing you want to carry into the post-Thanksgiving run to the end of the regular season schedule. Some injuries tonight that
big
could
injuries.
make a difference for both teams. We've got the screen here, I think, that's going to come up that shows all of the big names. T. Higgins is out with his lingering knee injury.
Sam Hubbard
out with an ankle. I was trying to talk slowly to give the graphic time to catch up to us. There's Marlon Humphrey doubtful with a calf injury. That's big for Baltimore.
Ronnie Stanley hurt his knee last
Jamar
week.
Chase.
Yeah.
And he's out as well. I don't see Jamar Chase on the board, which is good news for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Nor
Trey
Trey
else I don't see on the
Hendrickson.
board, Chris?
What's that?
That's right.
Yeah.
There's one other name, too. Joe Burrow's not on the board.
Yeah.
And you would wonder, well, why would he be on the board? Well, a little interesting thing happened last night.
This is kind of funny.
The Bengals posting their arrival video to Baltimore. They posted an arrival video that was captured by a couple of local stations in Cincinnati. And Burrow's got something on his right hand. And I don't think it's a fashion statement. He's got something on that hand. And there's a still image of it somewhere as well that gives you a better look at it, because that's a little grainy. And it's not like somebody was saying it was some kind of computer thing, but none of the fingers are. It's wrapped around.
This is what I see as
his wrist.
Yeah, I know. He holds his arm together, and it looks
What
like
do you
he
see?
tries to lift something with his left arm here as he bends over, almost protecting that right hand a little bit. Now he does look like he has maybe like a laptop or something in that right hand too. But I'm with you. It does look like it's some sort of, maybe wrist brace, something like that. I'm not sure, though. Maybe it's not. I don't know what the hell it is.
Or unless he was bowling on the plane, because I've seen bowling wraps like that. Maybe they have a 747 with a bowling lane in it on the way from Cincinnati to Baltimore. The fact that the Bengals deleted the video
that's the point.
is the thing that makes me think there's something fishy about this.
Right. Agreed. That to me, I think if they don't delete it, they could probably BS their way out of it and just say whatever. I don't know. It's something that he's got wrapped around his hand. I don't know what to say, but it does look like it's some sort of brace, whether he jammed his thumb or has something with his wrist. That's what I would assume when you see that type of thing there. Here's another photo of Joe coming off the plane, and you could see something there, again, wrapped around that right hand there. So there's obviously something. I know he did the finger 2 weeks ago, right, when he was bleeding in his cuticle and all that. That is not for that. That's for sure. So this is something new and something that happened in the Houston, Texas game where he certainly took a few hits throughout the football game.
The fingers aren't part of it. It comes up and over the thumb, and it's just like that piece going around the thumb is what's holding it in place on the wrist. So that's why, because somebody said, it's some kind of thing to use your tablet, and it's a finger. The fingers aren't part of it. It just comes over the wrist, and it comes over the thumb, and I think it's held in place on the wrist for something. And again, you delete it, and you get people like us to say, aha, there may be something going on there. And obviously, he'll be asked questions about it after the game. We'll see what he says. We'll see what Zach Taylor says. They got about 24 hours to come up with a pretty good explanation for why he was wearing it and why the video of him arriving in Baltimore that was posted on the Bengals Twitter account was deleted. So, look, we know how he is. He's still going to come out and play.
That's right.
I don't care if he's banged up. I don't care if he's got a cast on that wrist. They'll cut it off tonight, and he'll go out and play.
Yeah, I mean, he's Joe Burrow. He's tough as hell, like we've talked about. He wants to play. He understands his importance to the football team. He understands the importance of this game overall, especially after losing Sunday. Definitely. Also, hey, the way he played down the stretch, they could have won the football game. Tyler Boyd should have caught the ball. Let's not forget, though, that Joe Burrow threw 2 pretty bad fourth-quarter interceptions that you don't see Joe Burrow do very, very often. He's Joe Cool for a reason. So I'm sure that's, eating away at him to a degree as well here, where he wants to get back on the field and kind of get that stench out of his mouth of Sunday's loss to the Houston Texans. We'll see. They were rolling. We know that. And, to lose that game, T. Higgins' injury leading up to the Houston Texans game and him not being able to play, Jamar Chase, with the little back aggravation 2 weeks ago, and then him not practicing last week. I know he still played really well, but it certainly messed up their mojo a little bit. Let alone C.J. Stroud and that offense, right, made a lot of plays on that Cincinnati defense. And, there's a lot of interesting things, I think, within the matchup, whatever side you want to start on here, Mike, that we can unpack that, I think are going to go a long way to telling us who wins this football game tonight.
Well, let's look at the Bengals offense without T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Because Tyler Boyd stepped up last week.
Yep.
Jamar Chase still had a big day despite the back injury.
Trent Irwin's
and they
not
scored
bad.
27 points.
Yeah.
They just, they didn't do enough to ultimately win the game, but it was their defense that let them down. A defense that we have seen flashes of dominance throughout the season. I think of the Monday night game against the Rams when they just shut down and stymied Matthew Stafford and company. But they were shredded by C.J. Stroud this past weekend. And, it just shows you balance is critical. Balance is critical. But let's focus on the Bengals offense going into Baltimore, where we've seen in recent weeks teams like the Lions and the Seahawks shut down, didn't get it done against the Browns on Sunday, Do you think the Bengals will be able to move the ball effectively against the Baltimore defense?
I mean, I do think they'll be able to move on it effectively. Like, I don't expect this to be, a game that gets into the high 20s. I think we're talking about low 20s type of football game, 23-20, 2017, right? That's at least how I envision it. Division opponent, they kind of know, the bread and butter plays, the meat and potatoes of your offense. But what I always like about Cincinnati's chances against Baltimore is the fact that, hey, Baltimore does all this crazy stuff. We know they got a million defenses. Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator, to me is one of the best in football, right? They're leading the NFL in sacks, Mike. And you can't really name a pass rusher that you're like, ooh, he's scary. They got a game plan to stop him, right? They do it because of the creativity of Mike McDonald on that side of the ball. He creates matchups. He messes with pass protections. Burrow and Cincinnati are damn good in that department. You don't trick Joe Burrow too often as far as who's blitzing, who's dropping. He knows where to go to get the ball out of his hands. So that's one thing that kind of equals the playing field as far as when you're playing the Baltimore Ravens. Plus, we know, Mike, they're kind of a quick passing team anyways, right? I've called them in the past a ball-controlled, short passing football team. That's kind of what they do. They dink and dunk you and dink and dunk you. And as you always hear me say, right? You play zone and he picks you apart. And it's like a slow death. And then you go, okay, I can't take this anymore. We got to play some man-to-man. And then he goes, oh, just what I wanted. Now Jamar Chase is man-to-man and we're going to take a shot. Or T. Higgins is man-to-man and we're going to take a shot. So they have a nice formula as far as Joe knowing where to go against pressure, knowing where to get the ball out of his hands. And plus their offense in general is kind of, hey, it's West Coasty. It's get the ball out of your hands quick. And that kind of plays into their hands a little bit with all the disguises and things that Baltimore does on the back end. It almost makes it a moot point to a degree because of how Cincinnati runs their offense.
And on Higgins,
yeah,
he has a hamstring injury, not a knee.
Right. It was in practice,
I apologize for getting it wrong earlier.
What an idiot you are.
And,
how could
with
you
the
do
hamstring,
that? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no idea how that happened. I apologize, and I will seek forgiveness and redemption for as long as I shall live. But a hamstring, who knows how long it's going to take to fully and completely heal. We've seen Justin Jefferson miss 5 games and counting with his hamstring injury, and he's just kind of underscoring the value of T. Higgins in that offense, a guy who's due to be a free agent after the season. Interesting decision for the Bengals to have to make. Do they think they can just go draft another T. Higgins to pair with Jamar Chase? They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase after this season. The window opens on his second contract right about the time T. Higgins is marching toward free agency. I'm surprised they haven't gotten anything done with him. They had to get Burrow done, but they got to get Higgins done. They need to keep him around. Even though they still managed to put up 27 points without him, even though Tyler Boyd stepped up, you got to have all 3 of those guys to get the absolute most out of that offense, especially when, and this kind of has shades of the whole Josh Allen, why aren't the Bills any better? You've seen a simplistic offense from the Bengals at times because when you've got great players, you don't have to be all that complicated.
Right.
Just throw it to Chase.
Right.
Throw it to Higgins. Throw it to Boyd. We'll be fine.
Yeah, you're right. It drives me crazy, especially early on in the football season. But unlike Buffalo, it grows, and they get a feel for how teams are playing, and they tinker with their offense. And there's an element of their offense where the coach gives Joe Burrow a lot of answers to where he could be surgical. Right? That's where it's different than Josh Allen. Josh Allen, they're just like, heck, that guy's going straight, and that guy's going straight, and the other guy's going straight, and throw a laser down the field, Josh. And if he's not open, run around and then throw a laser for us. So he's not given that, where Joe is given answers, and that's why when you talk about prototypical, quarterback play in the pocket, decision makings, all that, he's the best in the business in that department. He will just absolutely, be an assassin sitting in the pocket, moving, sliding, feeling pressure. Ooh, this guy moved in the zone. Let me just get it to him real quick. Okay, we got 6 yards. Now it's 2nd and 4. That's where he just will absolutely dissect you, and that's where he can become a problem, with the Baltimore Ravens. They like to do all these crazy, intricate zone coverages, and as they're doing it, boom, he gets it out, and it kind of takes away the creativity away from them, let alone, like you just said, you hit Jamar Chase on one of those, which we've seen in the past, he might catch one and boom, 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 and all of a sudden he's running 60 yards up the sidelines. So that's what's different about Cincinnati, and when they get rolling and start to get a little information on how teams play and their breakdowns, Joe gets them in the right play. They package the plays the right way together, I should say. And that's where Cincinnati becomes really tough to defend. And took them a little while last week to find the right answers against Houston. But as we saw in the second half, Houston couldn't really stop Cincinnati, and they started going up and down the field on them.
One big imbalance that you noticed from Sunday, the running game for the Bengals just not there to the point where you would like it to be. You want more than 46 yards out of Joe Mixon, and you don't want to see Joe Burrow getting 20 yards rushing. That's not what he should be doing. Mixon should be the one who's banging it between the tackles and softening up the defense and setting up a little play action, setting up some of those throws down the field.
That's when they're at their best.
Devin Singletary, AFC Offensive Player of the Week with 150 rushing yards in that game. So running and stopping the run, still important, especially if you're going to go into Baltimore and you're going to try to beat the Ravens. You can't not run the ball and go to Baltimore and beat the Ravens.
Yeah, agreed there. If you go to Baltimore and think you're going to drop back and throw the ball every time, then it becomes, it just becomes too much on the quarterback. It becomes too much on the play caller because of all, like we just talked about, the crazy things Baltimore does. And if they start to get a feel like, oh, this is going to be a drop back pass game all the time, and we don't ever have to call defenses to worry about run fits or anything like that, yeah, that's a tough way to live in Baltimore on the road. Not to say that Joe Burrow and company can't do it, but I don't think that's the recipe they want, to your point there. And Cincinnati, like we saw in San Francisco or some of the other games in their winning stretch, when they're at their best, Joe Mixon is running the ball effectively. It doesn't need to be 100 yards, right? But when he starts to get north of 70 and that general range, that means he's gotten the ball enough times to where the defense has respected it. He's making a few yards, and then, of course, he's getting the defense into some looks every now and then that are beneficial for Joe Burrow on a first down to throw the football and have matchups he wants there. That'll be a big part of tonight, is running the ball will at least scare Baltimore from doing so much crazy stuff. These two blitz, this guy drops back. These two blitz, these two drop back. If you run the ball, that scares defensive coordinators from calling that sometimes because those guys drop back, and then all of a sudden, whoa, we have a down block there, and now there's a huge hole and everything like that, and you can be exposed that way to a degree.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.